Even right now in this pandemic, Lord, we say thank you. Because your word teaches us to cast all of our care. Even though it seemed like the weight of the world may be on our shoulder, Lord, you still care. Even though it seemed like we're not going to make it through this, but Lord, you still care. And Lord, we say thank you for Calvary. But Lord, we give you glory that he did stay dead. But that Sunday morning, he got up with all our. We ask now that you be with. So Lord, we ask now that you be with this church. Lord, we ask special prayer for to encourage our hearts. Amen. Great Jehovah, yeah. What a blessed day. He had excellent rapport with the church leaders. They had resigned themselves to political domination to the Roman Empire as long as the church and its entities were not touched. Pilate handled the finance. He kept a low profile among the restless radical, especially been in practice to ignore a person regardless of his ability if he's not in the system, the hills and around the lake of Jerusalem. They can no longer ignore him because people were turning to him. They said, we must find some method to stop him, to curb him from this work. Really receive no help from him. He told them when they returned that Jesus went into some weird discussion talking about being born again. All right. We must be extremely cautious in dealing with him because the people are greatly attached to him. You see, he's very knowledgeable. He was the Son of God. All right. Said we need no further witnesses. They said he's guilty and he's guilty of death. So they took Jesus to Pilate. The clever high priest did not want killing on his hand. He wanted Jesus dead, but he wanted to have clean hands. Yeah. He shifted the charges from being religious charges to state charges. Right. Jesus claimed to be the Son of God, but that charge would not appeal to the Roman Empire. Jesus also claimed to be king. His kingship claim would attract empire interests. Right. And when people are frightened, when people are frustrated, when people are fragile, they become desperate. Right. Pilate was most ambitious. He probably had aspirations to run for office in the Roman Empire. He no doubt felt that this religious dispute would be settled among the church people and it would not even reach government proportion. But the charges had reached a level that government officials must get involved. Right. He was corrupting the nation, Jesus that is. He was stirring to be king. Now when Pilate thought an empire issue, Pilate was inexperienced at this level. Caiaphas was a seed religious hands now to the state hands. It was terribly unfortunate that church leaders had become so envious and insecure that they ignored the truth of the gospel and delivered him, Jesus that is, to the hands of a cruel government to be decided. Church people must learn to discern the difference between the truth of the gospel and the devotion to a system that's corrupt and conniving. Pilate was a troubled man. He could see that he was being put in a bind. Caesar's name was being thrown all around and no fault in him. Pilate's wife had a disturbing dream about this Galilean, which she related to her husband. Pilate washed his hands publicly to indicate his lack of guilt. But his guilt was not in his hands, y'all. His guilt was in his heart. If Pilate had the courage of his convictions, he could have left this world a testimony in history. I find no fault in him. Pilate, y'all, blew his opportunity to become a hero of the ages, for then hung his soul as long as he lived, and you eat him in judgment. Pilate's question still hangs on the rafters of life in our culture. What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? Jesus would not leave the scene. He was crucified and entombed. But he arose from the dead and announced, I am he that liveth and was dead. And behold, I am alive forevermore. And my brothers and sisters, every member, every nation must make the decision as to what will they do with Jesus. We hear his name in many languages around the world. We sing his praises in melodious music. He's in temples, cathedrals, edifices, temples, tents, and storefronts. There are great arguments and discussions and debates and dialogues about this Jesus. But what shall we do with Jesus is the question that each and every one of us must answer. What shall I do then with Jesus? The text says, which is called Christ. Every member must make a decision as to what he or she will do with Jesus. Because he's ever present. He speaks through his word. He speaks through his ministry. He speaks through his witnesses, and he speaks through his spirit. And it's extremely important that we as one with those who seek to crucify him. Indifference to him is a vote to crucify him. There are a vast number of indifferent people who live as if Jesus were never alive. They pretend not to see him in our world and in our nation. There are those who are satisfied doing something for Jesus, but they do not spend time in fellowship with Jesus. Mary and Martha are examples of that situation. Martha was concerned about doing something for Jesus, but Mary was happy just to sit down and fellowship with Jesus. And between preparing a meal for Jesus and fellowshipping with Jesus, Jesus said that Mary had chosen the better part, that is, to have fellowship with him. There are those who claim that Jesus was a unique character. He had great and marvelous things he had done in his day, but they had relegated him to merely just being a part of history. They say that a Galilean peasant has no relevant word. No, that's proof he got up because his grave clothes were lying there 3 days after he got up, as he promised, with all power in his hand. I tell you, they're still saying, I find no fault in him, and every believer must decide What shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ? I don't know how you feel about it, and